Hi, I'm Bloodrop6, but you can also call me Doug. Today I'm showing you my Storm Druid build that is a support slash solid solo build to play through the game with, and from what I've experienced is pretty solid in the early parts of the endgame that I've tried. Essentially what it is Storm Strike to make things vulnerable. This is just really good. The vulnerability lasts for 3 seconds and 50% chance. I'm swinging this quite often because I have a aspect that allows me to take 20% reduced damage when using a basic skill. So it makes me tankier, and vulnerability is one of the best things in the entire game. Lightning Storm is the main focus of the build. As you can see, I maxed out 5 out of 5, but I have something that's giving me 1% or one extra skill towards it. The reason I maxed it out is because I just want to maximize the damage it does, because it's a big difference from level 1 to 5. I elected to take the Lightning Storm Immobilize part of it as opposed to the extra strike, just because it works in with my build a little bit later, and I'll show you that. But the Immobilize is really good, and that's why I call it a support build, because we're doing a lot of vulnerability and we're immobilizing a lot of things. Next, I take 2 defensive skills, Earth and Bulwark. I get the one that gives me Fortify, just because I like Fortify. Fortify feels really strong with this build because we get it from a lot of different sources, and it's always up. I also take Debilitating Roar because it fits in with that support kind, with how I take it, with the slowing effect, and obviously the 70% reduced damage is massive. This is just really good for just grouping enemies and then popping it just to do quick bursts of damage. When they're slowed, they can't attack as fast, so it lets that immobilize work better, because if you're not getting hit, it's a lot easier to hit the enemies, and once you hit them, they're not going to really be able to hit you back. I'm taking Hurricane, and I'm taking the one where you take less damage, or where the enemies in it deal less damage. I take this just because the vulnerability one is really good, but I'm getting vulnerability from my Storm Strike and my Cataclysm that you'll see in a little bit. Next, Cataclysm, obviously, I just talked about it. It gives me vulnerability for 2 seconds when it's up. It's up for 14 seconds because of a passive I take, but also I'm taking the Spirit Boon where I get more ultimate, just because when it's up, the build feels really strong and really good. When it's on cooldown, not so much. The build does suffer. This build is not as good as the Pulverize, but I have more fun with this build than the Pulverize, and it is somewhat off meta, but it like I said, it works so well in the support category. You can work 4-man groups with this, and you're immobilizing everything. Next, I'll just quickly go over the main key passives I'm running. I'm running Abundance and Wild Impulses, kind of just basic for every Druid build. Your basics give you more Spirit. It takes more Spirit to do, but 15% damage. That's big. I'm taking this because I didn't really have anywhere to put it, but 4% critical strike chance isn't bad, especially because I'm always by enemies. So it's 4% for just the 2 points. It's fine. I put 1 in Ancestral Fortitude, just so I can put 3 in Vigilance, because I have 2 defensive skills that I don't use together. I use it in tandem, and one is up, the other one is on cooldown, and so forth. You know, use it in between each other. And this just always gives me a 50% damage reduction. Next, we're taking Endless Tempest. It just makes my Cataclysm way better. And I'm taking the one that gives me more immobilization on all lightning damage. And if they're already immobilized, I get more damage. I mean, that's big. It just speaks for itself. I'm always immobilizing. If I'm not immobilizing, they're already immobilized, and I do more damage to them. It just works well. I'm taking all of these passives here because it just, every nature magic, it gives me way more increased damage, which that's what I love. That's what I'm all about. Perfect Storm, not too much. Paragon, like I said, I haven't played a whole lot, so it's not fully spec'd out, but you know, it's better than nothing. This character isn't complete, but it is getting there, and I think that this will work on Torment, and especially with groups, because it is a very solid support build. I'm going to be showing you this on solo in just a random dungeon that I picked out. You know, I didn't want to do that bug dungeon because, you know, you're not going to be able to face stuff like that too often in the game. So now we're just going to go to the dungeon, and I'm just going to show you how it works. Essentially, when I run into packs of enemies, I like to use Debilitating Roar first because it's easier to get that cycle going. And then if I'm around enemies that can CC me or stun lock me or do anything of that sort, I use Earth and Bulwark because it's overall the best defensive skill for myself. It's what allows me to have the most survivability. And whenever Cataclysm is up, I use it around elites and any massive packs of enemies. And other than that, I mean, I left click every now and then to get things vulnerable and get more spirit. But Lightning Storm kind of just takes care of itself. As you can see here, I mean, I'm not hitting for like high damage. These are just regular enemies. But, I mean, for playing solo, I am only on Torment, or World Tier 3. But it's chunking them, and that's the thing. The damage isn't like high and like going off a bunch. But when it does hit, and if it hits with a critical strike, which it does pretty often, it chunks them. And like I said, the Immobilize is my favorite thing, because I can be standing in an entire groups of enemies of pit lords and big guys like that, and they're just stun locked. They can't do anything to me because I have them stun locked.
I'm not ready yet.
And I was running that bugged dungeon where there was way more elites in it, and it was perfect for that. I would stand in the entire group of them just holding my right click and then using a few of my defensive skills if I got slightly low. With this build, it can take a hit more than some of the other builds out there. It's not as tanky as Pulverize, because with that you're electing to play Bear, and Bear has way more tanky attributes. There are way more passes in there that just make you way tankier than this build. But for playing a non-shape-shifting build, I mean, it does really well. It does exactly what I wanted it to do. Because once again, I'm playing solo, but I see this more as a group support build eventually, once I figure out some more stuff, get to a higher level. Oh, okay, I'm crowd controlled. Kind of bad to show off, but this is my first take. I'm not gonna redo it. I'm not gonna cut. This is all live footage, just because I don't want to say this build is great and then have it perform in the best circumstances, because it's not always going to be the case. But also on top of that, I do feel like this build, the further I go on, will get better because of the Paragon and finding a few more pieces of gear that just are better for my character. And I really wanted to elect to play Lightning Druid because during the early access and right before it, I saw everybody was using Pulverize Druid. That's cool and all. Shapeshifting is awesome, but in Diablo 2, my favorite Druid was actually the Elemental Druid, Fire Druid, to be exact. And it wasn't that powerful, until you had gotten the higher like rune words. Like, I can't remember the name of the helmet. Flickering Flame. The Flickering Flame was so very strong with that Fire Druid. But before that, it was just an off-meta build that was fun. And that's kind of what this is. Like, I don't see many people talking about it. I don't think I've seen anyone talk about it, in fact. Someone might have. But I just kind of threw together the build, and I played through it the entire story. I've done everything you see that I've done on this character was pretty much done with this druid, this storm druid. And I love the fact that every single skill, aside from my 2 defensive skills, are all about that conjuring storm, and it is coming together, and it's doing way better than I expected, if I'm being honest with you. Because once again, I played a little bit with the Pulverized Druid. I can see why it's so good, but this build to me is just so much more fun. It's a little bit more engaging when you're facing those big groups of enemies. In Pulverized Druid, it's really cool. You can do a lot of damage throughout the whole time, but that big 12-second strike is when it comes into big effect. And that shockwave, obviously, is what you want on it to do great damage. Like, before the 12 seconds, so that's what everyone's been using, is the shockwave aspect. And that is really solid. But I think my build, at least somewhat works. It's not gonna clear faster than the Pulverize. It's not gonna be better than any of the rogue or barb builds that you can just throw together and just play with, and it'd be really strong and really fun. But I'm playing with extremely limited gear and without You know, I've only put like 50 hours into this game, and it's all been on this character. But in the grand scheme of it all, that's not a whole lot of time to put together this character, and that's why I really like it. But yeah, you know, once again, as you can see, we're handling these elite packs. My health really isn't dipping. When it is, it's just because I misplayed and accidentally used my defensive skill, kind of like I did there. But you see, right here, perfect example. The worst part of this build is the single target damage, because these lightning strikes, they don't hit in that one spot. But if they do, just by that RNG, it hits for a lot of damage. Like a group like this, I can just melt, you know, 4 or 5 of them at a time. But I cannot do that if it's just one of them all the time. And if they add an aspect that makes the lightning strikes better against single targets, I truly think this build could transcend from what I would call maybe C or B tier to maybe even like A tier. Just make it smarter, because I mean the tornadoes have a have an aspect where that makes them smarter, and I would love to see something like that. If not, the build works just fine. Not anything crazy. You know, I mean, once again, I'm low level. This might not work on Torment, but I'm climbing there. I'm sorry. If I was grinding a little bit more, I would be able to fully tell you if it worked there, but I just haven't had all that time to play. I've just been doing some other things. But I'm really loving this game. Really loving the Druid. Can't wait to try the other characters out. Now let's take on the boss. This will probably be the longest part of the whole dungeon. Oh, actually, we are doing some pretty decent damage to it. I did not think we were going to be able to do that much damage in my first damage cycle, especially because I didn't have Cataclysm up. Cataclysm, if you couldn't tell, is like my main source of damage. It's where all the big stuff comes into play. But Lightning Strike, I mean, it does a fair bit amount of damage. Now we're going to put Lightning Storm, Cataclysm on. And it's just, yeah, see, chunking. Chunking, we got lucky with our Lightning Strikes all land in a very compacted area. And he's dead. Like, it's that easy. This build is great. It stuns everything. When they're stunned, it does more damage. And it just all works together. I do have a fragment, or an aspect, sorry, right here. Not that one. No, not that one. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a fragment where if I crowd control somebody, it has a 75% chance to 75% chance to spread to enemies around him. And with that on, you CC even more things. And so the capabilities and the potential for this build are way higher than what they are. But I just really wanted to share this with you because it's what I played through to get the story done, and I got the story done relatively fast. It was really easy, didn't die like at all, played on World Tier 2 the entire time, and it was just a breeze. And so far in this early stage of the end game, it has been all the same. Just it's really fun, it's really engaging, and you feel like you're doing something as opposed to Pulverize, where you just, you know, when you need to go into Grizzly form, or sorry, the ultimate Grizzly, and then you just kind of slam down and you just do that. This build, I'm mashing my keys a little bit more, but using it smartly, because it's not like Diablo 3 where your cooldowns are insane. And it's always constant lightning strikes, which is so fun to look at, and it does great damage. So anyways, that's it from me. Expect to see more builds on my channel, whether for the Druid or the other classes, because I will be playing every single class. I will try to get them as high and in the end game as possible, because that's what I'm all about. But yeah, this is my first build guide for Diablo 4, and I expect to put out many more. Thank you for tuning into the video and staying this long. I will see you later. Goodbye.